Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Whoa. Let me turn down that gain. How does it sound now? For some reason, my mic went crazy. You guys okay? I'm sure I blew your eardrums out. OBS is showing it went crazy. Is this better now? I don't know what just happened to my mic. Let me know in the chat right now. Sorry, weird start to the stream, but I was looking at OBS and went straight to the red. Is the mic sound okay right now? It's not blown out? It's not too low? Like, are we good? Sorry, I just want to figure this out before I start talking. I just want to make sure the mic sounds okay. Good? Okay. I think I'm seeing that the mic is fine now. We good? Can I get one more good in the chat if it's good? I just want to make sure I'm not blowing... Alright, I just want to make sure I'm not blowing your guys' eardrums out, because all of a sudden OBS went like straight to red as soon as I started talking. Alright guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. So good to be back, so good to see all of you today. I apologize about the short notice on the stream. I usually try to give everyone an hour heads up before I go live. Today was only like 20 minutes because, you know, it's been a busy morning. I've had a lot going on, trying to round up reviews, all of that sort of stuff. But we got two really major topics we can talk about today, and as always, we can talk about whatever you want. But the two big major topics are going to be, of course, Starfield reviews have dropped. They are in, and as of right now, it's sitting at an 87 on Metacritic and an 87 on OpenCritic. So it's got an 87 on both of them. This is going to cause, you know, a ton of public discourse. This has been a game that's been very hyped up. This is a game that, you know, whether it's PlayStation fans or Xbox fans, people have been talking about online for years. And really since the day it was announced and since Microsoft bought Bethesda. And you're going to see a ton of takes on this one. I'll just let you know off the top, this is exactly where I predicted it was going to land. Like right in the range, high 80s. Pio sent out a tweet yesterday on Twitter, and I think it was yesterday, and he was asking everyone for their, you know, final Metacritic predictions, and I said 87 to 89, that high 80s range. And there was a lot of people convinced that this game was going to land 90 plus. That always seemed fairly unlikely to me, if I'm being honest with you. And the reason, I'm just going to give you my take on it off the top. And of course, you guys are going to have all your own takes. We're going to go into all of that here in the chat. But to me, this was a game that never had a super good chance at 90 plus. And that might sound weird, but let me explain to you why. So with a game that was going to be this ambitious, this big in scope, I think it was always going to hit well for most people. And to be honest, the reviews are strong. You're going to see some people come out and try and say that this game's reviewing horribly or it's doing bad, you know, console warrior type stuff. But if you actually go into the reviews, I mean, this is a game that's getting tons of 10 out of 10s, 5s out of 5s. Like, it was always a game that, as long as Bethesda delivered on the basic promise of what it was, I always thought it was going to be a game that was going to hit super well for most people. And if you look at the reviews, it has, right? An 87 Metacritic or OpenCritic is great for most games. Now, of course, there were some Xbox fans hyping this to the absolute moon to be like a 95 or 96 or whatever. But let me explain to you really quick why I didn't think that was going to happen. Like I said, most people, I think this game's going to hit with. Even with the public, I think most people are going to play Starfield, and they're really, really going to like it. But anytime you get a game that's trying to go this ambitious, that's trying to do so many things, that's not super tightly focused on, like, let's say like a linear game or something like that, where you have like a set, tighter experience, there was always going to be some people that elements of a game this big in terms of like expansiveness that it just wasn't going to hit with. And I've been saying that for a long time, like in my private Discord, including on my tweet that I sent out to Pio where I was predicting high 80s. There was the odds of this game getting 90 plus to me always seemed a bit like a long shot. And it's mostly for that reason. It's trying to do so much stuff that there's going to be some people that's not going to connect with, right? It's not a super tight experience. Now, it doesn't mean I'm saying when you play the game it feels buggy or bad. Not at all. I'm just saying you get a tighter, more scripted type game. you know, you can really, really focus in. And of course, some of that's not going to hit with everyone too, but it's like you basically get a really tight experience. Starfield is a very expansive one. So it's getting strong reviews, but I'm not shocked at all to see it coming under 90. That's what I was expecting, to be honest with you. That being said, there's still good reviews, but we're going to have a ton of discussion on that. We're going to have a ton of takes. I'm sure you guys got all kinds of ones, probably some of them very spicy. Another major topic today that we can discuss that actually broke at the exact same time, and I personally don't think it's probably a coincidence that it broke at the exact same time, is that Embracer Group has closed Volition Games. That's right, Volition, who's been around for 30 years, developers of the Saints Row franchise, they're closed effective immediately. So it's not even one of those things where they have a couple weeks, it's done, right? Effective immediately, Volition Games is closed. I feel really, really bad for everyone at that studio. As we all know, the Saints Row reboot underperformed. Really sad to see. There's going to be, I'm sure, some questions about the future of Embracer, about their strategies. Are they in trouble? I kind of think they are. And a ton more we can talk about. So for anyone, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. Now, there's going to be a few ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, there's going to be two different ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the super chat method. You type a donation, whatever you want, it alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. Another way that you can guarantee that I get to your question is by becoming a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 for a month, and basically the perk for you for being a channel member is that I guarantee that every channel member in every stream gets at least one comment or question highlighted in the stream. I can't guarantee that I'll get to every single question and comment from every channel member because these do get really, really big. And just, I don't mean necessarily really, really big in terms of viewership, but I just mean like the amount of comments and questions in chat. I can never hit everything, but I guarantee that every channel member is going to get at minimum one highlighted every stream. All right, guys, let's get rocking and rolling. We've already got a good turnout. We were already over 100. That has dipped, but I'm sure it's going to bounce around. Let's do the very first poll because I love doing these polls, and I actually have several polls in mind for this stream. So the first one I'm going to start is, are Starfield's reviews where you expected them to be? We'll say yes, right around where I thought, which is my answer. But again, everyone's going to have different expectations, but this came exactly where I predicted it would. Another will be no, I thought it would review higher. Or we'll say no, I thought it would review lower. There we go, I'm just curious. All right, first poll is in the chat. Okay, I expect that most people expected higher, but I did not. All right, here we go. And then we got the first super chat kicking us off. Timmer72299 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. So kind of you, buddy. Hi, Benji. What are your thoughts on Starfield's budget being apparently over 200 million, same as the Elder Scrolls Online, plus keep being awesome? Will you also keep being awesome, Timmer? You're always doing great work on Twitter, pulling up all sorts of interesting things on games like budgets and all of that sort of stuff. You do a great job on that, buddy. This is not surprising to me at all. In fact, it's like right in the range you would kind of expect. The Last of Us Part 2, for example, also had a budget over $200 million. That kind of seems like that's the sort of range we're in now for these major big flagship AAA games. It doesn't mean every single one's going to be 200 million. Some of them are going to be more. Some of them are going to be less. But with some of the budget stuff that we are seeing, Starfield, The Last of Us Part 2, I believe there was another PlayStation game whose budget leaked that was also right around 200 million. It seems to be that is kind of the ballpark we're going to start hitting on these big flagship games, which is very expensive, right? This is the sort of budget that like a major blockbuster Hollywood movie would land in, right? You see some go even higher, especially during the COVID times. Fast X, for example, I think had an over $300 million budget. I think same thing for The Flash. So, but yeah, this sounds about right to me. Right in that 200 million range, that sounds right given other budgets that we've been seeing on other flagship, big, huge AAA games. Sounds about right. So I'm not surprised to see that, but great work pulling that up, Timmer. But that sounds about right. And thank you for that super chat, buddy. Let's see. No other super chats, so let's hit some channel members before we dive into the free questions. What's up, JCat? Great to see you. Thanks for helping mod the channel as always, JCat. J2 Blue in the Sky channel member, what is up? Saying, what's up, Benji? Not much, buddy. Hope you're doing good. All right, Anthony M. Johnson, Mercy Knight Publishing channel member here. Hi, Benji. Circana said subscription services are stagnating. Game Industry Biz said payouts for indie subscription games are down. What does Xbox do if subscriptions are close to their peak? Yeah, I talked about this in just a recent chat. I don't remember exactly which chat it was, but it was in the last several chats. I think it was when someone was asking me about Sony announcing that they weren't going to publicly announce their PlayStation Plus subscriber counts anymore. It does seem like that as of now, barring any major changes, we are kind of hitting where subscriptions are going to level out in terms of number of subscribers. Now you're seeing them try and get more revenue out of current subscribers now, right? You're seeing Sony raise prices on PlayStation Plus. You saw Xbox recently raise prices on Game Pass. So that to me seems like the next pivot that these companies that have subscription models are going to start trying to do, because if they feel that they can't gain tons of more subscribers, they have to pivot to how do we get more money per subscriber. Because as we know, with the way capitalism works, everything just has to always go up, right? Nothing can remain flat. If you remain flat, then that means you're failing essentially in capitalism, right? The goal is always growth. So if you can't grow total number of subs, what you're going to do is try and grow revenue from subscribers. So I'm not completely shocked to see this, by the way, in terms of like subscriptions starting to level out. Because like I said on that chat, I think we have enough data now that subscriptions are a useful tool, and this is going to apply to everyone. This is going to apply to entertainment, like movies and TV. This is going to apply to games. They're useful, but they aren't the end-all, be-all like some people suspected they would be, right? You go back, let's say, a year or two, and not really a year because we kind of saw the writing on the wall for the last year, but let's say like 2 or 3 years ago, you went back in time and it appeared that like subscription was the future for everything, right? Whether that was going to be music, whether that was going to be movies, TV series, video games, like no one's going to go to movie theaters anymore. No one's going to buy digital or DVDs. No one's going to buy games anymore. It's all just going to switch to subscription. We have enough evidence now that that's just flatly not true. Now, it's not true for all of entertainment. We've seen some record-breaking box office performances in the last couple of years. PVOD, we've had some leaks, which that means like buying digitally or renting digitally movies outside of a subscription, just flat out spending money to either buy or rent them. We found out through a recent article through Hollywood Reporter or Deadline or someone that tons and tons of money is being made on that outside of subscription for these companies. And then we're seeing with video games, lots of people just straight up still buy games. So the way I see it, now that we have a lot of data, subscriptions are not going to replace traditional models. Now, they're going to potentially impact traditional models in that you might see some declines in some areas because of subscription. People like, that just flat out won't buy games now, they'll only subscribe. But it's not going to be one of these things that straight up replaces it. I still suspect you're going to see Game Pass grow in subscribers, especially with like Starfield once they acquire Activision. But I said a little bit ago, I think this idea that they're just going to get to like 100 million Game Pass subs, probably not going to happen, to be honest with you. Or if it does, it'll take a very, very long time, I think, to get there. So yeah, that's kind of my opinions on it. I think game subscriptions can still grow a bit, but I think that people need to realize, both gamers and as well as people working at publishers, it's not going to replace traditional methods, or at least not for a long time. A lot of people are still going to just straight up buy games, and especially as these subscriptions get more and more expensive. Guancos here, channel member. What is up? Starfield in the high 80s at launch is amazing. That means 90s in 3 years. Yeah, the scores are good. You're going to see some people troll about it. Part of that is going to be, and I don't like to do any console warring at all, but part of it is going to be some Xbox people almost bringing this on themselves because of like the constant Twitter hype cycle of just declaring this would be a 95 meta. I always try and caution people, you should never assume any game is going to get a 90 plus Metacritic. It is not as easy as some people make it sound to be. Now, we do see some games get there. We see some games hit absolutely incredible scores. Look at Tears of the Kingdom. Look at Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not saying 90s plus is impossible, but guys, 90 plus is the outlier. So people, I always warn people for any game, like any of them, even a Zelda game, I'm always just like, just be a little careful, okay? Be a little careful about declaring that 90 plus is a lock, because it's hard. In order to hit 90 plus, that's the average. So that means you need to get almost every single outlet just praising your game. So it's going to be an outlier. High 80s is a great score. Like I said, where I expected it to be. And people shouldn't freak out over that. Joseki here, channel member. What's up, Joseki? Yo, Benji, what is up? Not strictly gaming related, but wanted to highlight a thing the Pokemon company is doing that is super smart and not appreciated enough. Today, they announced a new live action series featuring a premier Japanese actress. The plot is about a young adult struggling with adulthood, work mainly, but she rediscovers herself by replaying Pokemon on Game Boy. The Pokemon company is, I really hope I didn't lose the top of this chat. Catering to the adult audience more and more as the older Pokemon fans grow up. Even Let's Go was marketed with a co-op mode that was pretty parent/young kid friendly. They keep us old folks engaged. Yeah, I agree, Joseki. You know, I've talked about this a ton of times on the channel. One of the most impressive things about Pokemon is its absolute incredible staying power. We see all sorts of IPs blow up, be huge for 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 years, and then kind of fade away and go away. The fact that Pokemon has never went away, because there's other stuff that's like been massive, but then kind of went away for a while. For example, Star Wars. And whenever I say it went away for a while, some people are going to be like, no way, there was always the books, there was always the expanded universe. Of course. But I mean like big, huge movies in movie theaters. You know, there's been periods of times where Star Wars has just been like on the back burner, or other franchises. Pokemon has straight up never left since it came here, whether that's games, whether that's, you know, anime series, whether that's all the merchandising. It literally arrived, it never left, and it's as strong as it's ever been. It's a generational IP that still shows zero signs of declining. And you are correct. It's incredible how they still get older people excited about Pokemon, younger people excited about Pokemon. You guys know I work in retail, and I sell Pokemon games all the time, and it's just a massive age range of people that buy them. Like, you'll have people in their 40s coming in and buying Pokemon for themselves, and then you'll have people that are like 6 years old coming in and buying Pokemon. It's absolutely incredible. So yeah, it is truly one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in any industry. The fact that it still just does not stop. Where we at on the channel members? And then Guanco says a follow-up. My actual question, any update for Remnant 2 success since they announced selling 1 million in the first week? No, there hasn't been any additional updates besides that it did top the Circana/NPD sales charts. But unless I've missed something, they have not given any other sales milestone updates on Remnant. But it's doing very well. Yeah, it's doing very well. Lade is here with a channel member question or comment. Hey, Benji, do you think Starfield will be the best-selling game of September, or will another game like Mortal Kombat 1 beat it? Oh, that is a great question. Like in total players, there's zero question in my mind. Starfield will have significantly more players than Mortal Kombat 1. If we're talking straight sales... Oh, that is very, very interesting. It all depends on how Starfield performs on PC. On console, in terms of raw sales numbers on console, there's no doubt in my mind Mortal Kombat 1 is going to sell more on console in September than Starfield's going to. Because Starfield is going to be heavily cannibalized on console specifically. Those paid upgrades that everyone's doing to the premium edition, I do not believe will be counted in Circana as sales numbers, right? They might be counted in terms of like revenue, because Circana does actually track things like DLC. Now, they don't report that sort of thing publicly, but they are tracking that sort of data. But I don't think that any of that would be included as an actual sale of the game. Mortal Kombat 1 is going to be on PlayStation and Xbox, and it will not be on any subscription service. So raw sales on console, straight up in September, I'm like very extremely confident Mortal Kombat 1 sells more units than Starfield. Total players across everything, Starfield will be bigger than Mortal Kombat. The big wild card here is PC sales. How well does Starfield sell on PC? The tracking, as we've discussed, has been excellent for Starfield on PC. It's been tracking massive. I don't think these reviews dissuade that at all. Obviously, if it was 90 plus, you would see an even bigger increase in sales, but it's still a highly reviewed game. We're still talking an 87 Metacritic. So, for now, I'll still pick Starfield because of PC potentially being giga massive for it, but I'll be honest, I'm not super confident in it because people forget how big Mortal Kombat is. I'll still stick with Starfield, but it won't surprise me if Mortal Kombat tops it, to be honest with you. Because it's all going to come down to console versus PC, in my opinion. Starfield will sell a lot more on Steam than Mortal Kombat will. However, Mortal Kombat will sell more on console than Starfield, in my opinion. So it's kind of that flip-flop. It kind of really just depends how high Starfield goes on PC. We'll have a really good idea once we see that Steam concurrent number. Splitting at 89 with a 2 super chat. Holy cow, great turnout in chat. 120 plus people in chat today. Thank you so much, guys. Split at 89 with a 2 super chat. Happy Starfield Day, Benji. Thank you so much, buddy. Happy Starfield Day to you. Can't wait to play. I do have to work today, so I'm not going to be able to get on it until after I get off work. But I am just as excited as I ever was to jump into Starfield. Let's look at the poll. I asked you guys, are Starfield's reviews where you expected them to be? Right now, the leading number is where I was. 59% of you saying yes, right around where I thought. 36% of you said no, I thought it would review higher. And then 5% of you said no, I thought it would review lower. I always thought 90 plus was in play because it was the sort of game that, like, I didn't think it was the most likely outcome, but I thought it was definitely in play. Like, I even said that, I think, on the last chat. I think someone was asking me, and I was like, yeah, 90's in play. Like, it was in play, and we saw it get close, right? 87 is not far. There are a ton of 10s. There's a ton of 5 out of 5s. But always be careful about just locking that in, right? Don't ever assume that a game is just automatically a 90 plus. I thought it was in play. I thought this would review very high 80s, which is what it's coming in at. But you got to be careful about just instantly assuming 90 plus for any game. So 60% of you said around where you thought. 36% of you said you thought it would review higher, which, again, that's kind of what I thought. I actually thought that would be the leader, so I'm a little surprised that most people were with me. But 36% of you thought it would be higher than that. A lot of people expected 90 plus. And then only 4% thought it would be lower. So you know, pretty good, pretty good. All right. Let's start another poll. Like I said, I've got several polls in mind. Next poll, I'm going to ask you, how high does Starfield peak on CCUs on Steam? That means concurrent users, okay? How many, that number that we always kind of highlight when a game goes super, super high. How high does Starfield peak on concurrent users on Steam? We're going to go for the big one as the top option. 1+ million. For context, the only single player game that has ever hit 1 million plus is Cyberpunk 2077. That's it. There's never been another one. So we're going to do that as the highest option, 1 million plus. After that, we'll go... I'm going to have to use kind of big ranges because I think there's a huge discussion around where this is going to sit. So next we're going to go 800,000 to 900,000. Now, whenever I say 800 to 900,000, I don't mean that as in like 800, 850, and that stops at 899, right? I mean 800,000s to 900,000. So 950, 975, 850, 875. I'm meaning that I'll actually make it easier. I'll just make it 999 so everyone knows. 800 to 999. Okay. Next, we'll go 600 to 799. And then for the bottom option, we'll go 599K or less. All right. So those are your options. We're going 1 million plus. We're going 800,000 to 999. We're going 600 to 799 or 599 or less. I'll give you guys my answer after you guys do some voting. All right. Let's get back to your guys' stuff. Thank you for that super chat. Split End, you're the man, by the way. I think I said that earlier, but I just want to make sure I said thanks. Jeremy G with a 5 super chat. Steam peak player count prediction for tonight, considering it will only be primo editions. Jeremy G, this is hard for me to predict because I actually don't know if we'll actually even see that number. Hogwarts Legacy, we did not actually, I think, the first day or two see its peak concurrent player numbers because Steam itself will not show them. Unless they're handling this different than they have some other games. Like, for example, I think one of them was Hogwarts Legacy, unless I'm just forgetting that, but I'm pretty sure. You could not see that game's player count on regular Steam until the game actually officially launched. Like, it just wasn't listed because the game hadn't technically released yet. Because it wasn't even like an early access type thing as in a game launching in early access. Because those you do see, like where it's just a straight up early access game. Because at that point it's considered released. But this is more of like a special thing. And with Hogwarts Legacy, I believe they hid that. We eventually got to see it a little bit before launch because SteamDB was eventually found a way to make it displayed on steam.db. I don't know if that'll be the case on Starfield or not. So Jeremy, thank you for the super chat. I'm not going to make a prediction on this because I don't know if we'll actually even see its player counts tonight. Like, none of us may know. So we'll have to see. It's hard to say. Hopefully we do, though. Hopefully SteamDB is able to display it. Guancos has renewed their channel membership for 3 months. Thank you so much. Saying, when do you think FSR 3.0 will hit consoles? Yeah, I did see. I was watching Digital Foundry, and they were saying that that can come to console. I don't know. It's hard to say. That's a brand new tech, right? That is the new one, right? That was just shown off at Gamescom, I believe, is what you're referring to. I believe. Yeah, yep, that's the newer tech. I don't know. They say it can work on console. Theoretically, I would think we'll probably see it at some point, but it's hard for me to say. Anytime with new tech, I mean, look at how long it's taken to get Unreal Engine 5 games out. Like, we've still only really had one, and that was Immortals, which I'm not saying Immortals is like a, you know, doesn't count, but I'm saying we haven't seen like even a massive Unreal Engine 5 game yet from like one of the mega studios that are working on Unreal Engine 5. So new tech, it's just hard to say. Could come anytime, really. Kazimo, hi Benji, hope you're channel member here. Hope you're doing well. Love your work. For my question, do studios get happy with scores in the range of 80 to 90? Do all studios want to get that 100 or some already expect lower scores? I think it really just depends. I think that for the vast majority of studios, they're going to be extremely happy with an 80s Metacritic. Now, of course, there's going to be a difference between an 81 Metacritic and 89 Metacritic, right? Obviously, the higher the number, the better. But I think most studios, probably 80% or more, are going to be happy with an 80s Metacritic, right? And again, the higher, the better. There's going to be a few studios, though, that's the exception on, where they really just like their games are expected to hit 90 plus. Those are going to be Naughty Dog, right? I assure you that at Naughty Dog, if they come in under a 90 Metacritic, a lot of people there are going to be bummed. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to see their game as a failure, but it's just they've set that prestige up now, right? We're a 90s plus studio because they've had so many hit in that range. I'm sure Sony Santa Monica, it's probably another studio where when they release a game, they're expecting 90 plus now, right? I'm not saying they were expecting that back when the first God of War 2018 launched, but at this point, after what they did with 2018, Ragnarok, moving forward, I'm sure they expect 90s plus. So there's going to be a few exceptions of studios where they are just in that caliber range where they've done it multiple times, and so you're going to start to believe you can do that again. But again, like I was just saying earlier, guys, 90s plus meta is very hard to hit. People way to throw that number around assuming that it's going to get there. It is the exception. It is not the rule. So for the vast bulk of studios, Kazimo, they're going to be perfectly happy with an 80s Metacritic. So again, 80-90% of studios would be thrilled to have a game in the 80s. There will be a few exceptions out there. But yeah, no, most people are going to be very happy with those sort of scores. I mean, you guys have to remember a lot of the big giant PlayStation exclusives that we all love are right in that same range, right? If you look at Spider-Man, if you look at Spider-Man Miles Morales, if you look at the Horizon games, if you look at Ghost of Tsushima, these are all games in the 80s Metacritic. You got to be careful just locking in that 90 plus. Even many great games do not get there. Benji channel member here. Hi, Benji. A bit surprised by the low score Starfield received from IGN and GameSpot. I will agree with that. Even if the reviews were kind of where I was expecting, I didn't think that that IGN and GameSpot. Well, GameSpot maybe. GameSpot can be a little tough at times. I was surprised, I would say, the most by the IGN score. The IGN score being a 7 was the one that I was most surprised by. GameSpot, you know, we see GameSpot kind of throw the 7 around a little bit, to be honest with you, even on big games. That one's not as shocking to me, but IGN I am, yeah. Yeah, I am surprised on IGN. I thought that would be an 8, 9, maybe even a 10, but I did not see the 7 coming from IGN. That I'm surprised by. There was also the controversy with the likes Eurogamer or Edge. Is there a trust issue between big media and Xbox? That'd be a question for Phil Spencer. I do not know. I know a lot of people, journalists in the industry. I know a lot of them. Some of them are even in this chat sometimes. But I don't like, this is not the sort of thing I would ask anyone, like at IGN or GameSpot. And so I don't know. You would have to ask Phil. Phil would be the one to know if they have beef with some of these publications. I just can't answer that because I don't know. I don't know how Phil feels on that. Or Bethesda or whoever handled who was going to get code for this game. I don't know. It's a great question. It's just one I don't have the answer for. J2 Blue in the Sky, I was expecting it to be around 91, which still could. 87, 88 is still great. Yeah, it's a great score. You're going to see some console war stuff over it, but it's a very highly reviewed game. How much Ford channel member saying hello? What is up? We had a super chat. Joseki dropping a 2 super chat. Thank you so much. Thoughts on Super Mario Wonder after the Direct? It pains me to say this, Joseki. I haven't even watched it yet. I've had a very busy morning. It actually, when it was airing, I was still asleep. I woke up during the tail end of the Direct. My sleep schedule is just disastrous right now. I'm not going to go into all of my personal issues, but that's part of what's been going on with me this year is that, like, I just have all kinds of sleeping problems. And so I was still asleep during the Super Mario Wonder Direct. I woke up at the very end of when it was going on, and then by the time I was like functional and moving around, that's when Starfield reviews were dropping. That's when I started preparing for the stream. So I'm going to go back and watch the Mario Direct. I actually haven't seen it yet. I saw people posting screenshots. Looks like other characters can do the elephant transformation and stuff, but I haven't actually watched it myself yet, Joseki. I'm gonna have to get caught up on it. So thank you for the super chat. I apologize I don't have a better answer, but I was so busy I just haven't had a chance to watch yet. All right, Glitch channel member, and then I think like one or two more, and we can start getting to your guys' free questions. All right, let's hit David Taylor, channel member. I think the early access will hurt the concurrent active users since it splits the day one player base. You got to pay more to have it while conversation is at its peak. David Taylor, sometimes I would agree with that. I actually don't think that will be the case with this game because it is so long, and we see almost all games peak during the weekend. Their first weekend is almost always the peak. We see rare examples where even a second weekend can go higher. I believe Baldur's Gate 3 second weekend actually peaked higher than its first. But even a game like Hogwarts Legacy, which did a similar early day access, it wasn't 5 days. I believe it was 3 days for Hogwarts. It still peaked in that weekend. Which I know that would push it all the way to next weekend, technically. It would technically be the game's second weekend because of how the launch works out. So, David, I would say there's a chance, but this game is so big, so long, I think a lot of people will still just be playing it. Oh, Welfare's in the chat. What's up, Welfare? And Welfare's saying SteamDB is going to track it. Well, thank you, Welfare, for clearing that up. I didn't know if SteamDB would be able to track the early access. Welfare, if this is the same Welfare, that's a great buddy of mine. This dude rules. He's the man. This guy's the best number cruncher that I know. You know, we talk about all the time strengths and weaknesses people have. Welfare, if this is the same Welfare, this man is a number crunching monster. But he's saying SteamDB is going to track it, so that's awesome. Thanks for the heads up, Welfare. So that makes things interesting. David Taylor, now that we know that SteamDB is going to track it, we'll have the answer of whether the early access weekend will be its peak or if it'll be the first peak after the launch of the game for everyone. I'm still going to err on the side that it will peak after the game is fully released for everyone because it's such a long game. If this was a game that was like a 10-hour game or something like that, people would beat it, fall off or whatever, but it's like 100+ hours of content. I still think the true peak for Starfield will be after it's fully released. But we'll see. We'll actually know. I'm very happy to hear this from Welfare. We will know, since SteamDB will track it. Glitch, when do you think we will know more about Sony's future lineup of games? They haven't announced any first-party games in a state of play previously, so we'd have to assume it'd be in a bigger event. I don't know if you guys saw, but Grub said on Twitter exactly what I've been saying, what I've been expecting, not through insider information, but people keep asking me, is there going to be a big showcase, you know, sometime in this late part of this year for PlayStation, or is it going to be a state of play? Because there was some people rumoring about a showcase, and I kept saying, I just can't really see a full-on showcase, but I expect there's probably going to be a super good state of play. And Grub didn't give any context around what would be in the state of play, but he did tweet out on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. He said that he's hearing there is a state of play coming soon. So that to me lines up. That makes sense. I think they're going to have a really big state of play. I don't think they're going to put a showcase label on it. I think, though, it will be probably really heavy by state of play standards. We've seen some really good state of plays. We've also seen some very bad ones. But I think this will probably be like a really impressive state of play. They'll hold off on giving it a showcase label. And Glitch, I actually think there's a chance they will announce a big first-party game in it. And I know that's not something they've typically done, but I think since they're not going to have a big showcase, again, assuming they're not, and not until next year, I think there's a real chance you might get one. I wouldn't expect like 3 or 4 first-party games to be announced, but I think there's a chance. I do think there's a chance you would get one big first-party game reveal here. I think it could happen. Pio White Wolf's in chat. What's up, Pio? I was just talking about you earlier in the stream, bro. Earlier in the stream, I was saying how I was responding to your tweet, and I was expecting, you know, these kind of review scores. All right. Let me make sure I'm not freaking sitting here lying to you. I'm pretty sure I put 87 to 89 and not 88. Let's see. Let's see. I never want to be dishonest, but I'm pretty sure that's what I put. So that's what I've been saying for a while, is high 80s. With 90s in play, but I never said to lock that bad boy in. I just want to make sure. Because I've said it enough times in the stream, I want to make sure I'm not lying to you guys. Alright, let me just look at my freaking page. It's the easiest way to do it. Blah, blah, blah. Yep, that's exactly what I put. Alright, I'm making sure I'm not misleading you guys. Yep, I put that on Pio's tweet. Alright. Where are we at? OniX with the 2 super chat. Thank you so much, OniX. Can we agree if Starfield was multi-plat, meta would be higher? I will not agree with that, OniX. So I know some Xbox fans are going to have that opinion. I think that some Xbox fans just... And again, I would say the same thing for a PlayStation fan or a Nintendo fan about a big game that they were saying. I think, and again, I've said it so many times on the stream, you guys got to be careful about just declaring a game's going to be a 90 plus Metacritic. And I'm not saying you're doing that, OniX. I'm just saying I did see tons of that in my feed of just, Starfield's going to be 94, Starfield's going to be 95, Starfield's going to be the game of the year. Like, you guys got to be careful about declaring things about games you've never played. You know what I mean? These are still very, very high scores. So I cannot say that if it was multi-plat, the meta would be higher. Maybe. I'm not going to tell you there's no chance. There is a chance, right? Maybe it would be higher. But I can't agree that it's just a lock that if this game was on PlayStation, suddenly the review scores like jump higher, because these are already high scores. The 87 meta, if that's where it stands, only looks low if you were going in with incredibly high and aggressive expectations. All right, again, I mentioned earlier, look at how many big PlayStation, awesome PlayStation exclusives have reviewed in this range. The Spider-Man games, the Horizon games, Ghost of Tsushima. Like, these are great scores. So it only looks, an 87 only looks bad if you went in thinking this was going to get a 94. And you should always be careful assuming that for any game. And I'm not saying you did that, OniX, but I'm saying I did see tons of people doing that. So, and maybe, I'm not going to tell you there's no chance. There very well could be a chance if it was multi-plat it would be higher. But I can't lock that in because these are already high scores. They're not mind-blowing scores, you know, but they're not, like, low. I'll tell you what, if this was like an 81 Metacritic, I'd be singing a different tune. If this was like an 81, I'd be like, yeah, these are, like, lower than I expected. I could not have seen, like, an 81 Metacritic coming. Like, that would have, to me, been a legit surprise. That would have been much lower than I expected. But high 80s is still very strong. Even if there are going to be, I'll tell you what, one thing I will say, I don't think that Starfield's a lock to get a Game of the Year nom at the Game Awards now. I think it still has a chance. I think it really depends on how the October games review. And the reason is there's only so many slots. There's 6 slots. We know for a fact that Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3 take 2 of those slots. So now you're down to only 4. There's several other games that are reviewed extremely high already this year that probably maybe can get a nom. Maybe Final Fantasy 16 can get a nom. Maybe Resident Evil 4 Remake gets a nom. Like, there's already, I'm not saying that those are for sure in over Starfield, but I'm saying you already have several other super highly reviewed games. 2 of those slots are already locked. And then you also have some games coming up in October that are probably, from what the rumblings are sounding, going to also review very strong. Now, where they land, who knows? We've got games like Spider-Man 2. You've got games like Alan Wake 2 that the press keep absolutely gushing over every single time they show Alan Wake 2. You've got games like Mario Wonder. Like, I don't think, I will say with these sort of scores, a nomination at the Game Awards to me isn't locked. It is absolutely still in play. And if some of those October games don't review like way higher than Starfield, then it's probably safe. But we need to see how a few of these shake out in October because it's not a lock to me Starfield gets one of those 6 slots, just because this year's so fierce. Any other year, and I'd be like, yeah, Starfield's a lock, even with an 87 Metacritic of getting nominated for GOTY. But 2023 is just so fierce in competition. Let's see how these October games review, and then we'll see after that. But it's definitely still in play. It definitely still is. It just depends on how these October games do. I mean, if you see something surprising, like both Spidey and Alan Wake coming in at 90s meta, which, again, I would not expect, hold off on saying that's still going to be a lock. But if, in an if scenario, you saw Spidey and Alan coming with crazy reviews, then all of a sudden you're talking about 4 of the spots are potentially already locked, plus things like Resident Evil and stuff, or Street Fighter 6, which is at a crazy high meta. It's a very fierce year. I think every channel member's gotten at least one question answered. I think that every super chat's been hit. Let me make sure some free questions get answered. I'm just scrolling to make sure that every channel member got at least one. I'm not seeing any that I missed to get even one. So I'll come back to channel members. I have additional questions in a minute. Let me hit some freebies. Cameron Swear here saying Mario Wonder looks nice. Benji, are you surprised at PS5's price cut? Seems like they're struggling a little bit to keep that 25 mil goal. I'm a bit surprised. It does seem like PS5 momentum is cooling off a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that PS5 is like suddenly just bombing in sales, but we saw it like earlier this year because the demand, the inventory finally caught up to demand. We saw PlayStation 5 just having some absolutely monstrous months early this year. It's definitely cooled off. Now, it's still doing well, right? It's still hitting #1 in Circana / NPD, whatever you want to call it. It's still hitting like #1 in UK and Europe and all sorts of stuff. So when I say it's cooling off, it's still selling well, but we're not seeing this like absolutely explosive level of sales that we saw earlier this year. I think that a lot about how we know if it's going to hit that 25 mil goal or not is going to be how much hardware does Spider-Man move. We really need to keep an eye on that. I talked about that on the last stream. This is like the first mega tier PlayStation exclusive from Sony that is not cross-gen. Now, I know that there was a few that were, PS5 only earlier on, like Demon's Souls, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, but they weren't these like the biggest games PlayStation makes, right? God of War Ragnarok, cross-gen. Horizon Forbidden West, cross-gen. So these were great games, and definitely the PS5 versions attracted people to upgrade. But Spider-Man 2 is like the first S-tier, we'll say, franchise from PlayStation where you straight up cannot get this game on PS4. So you literally have to have a PS5 if you want to play Spider-Man 2. So let's take a look. Let's keep an eye. That's coming up quick. Let's see what sort of hardware impact Spidey can have, especially over the whole holiday period. I will say I'm a little surprised about the aggressive price cutting and promotions that they're doing, but Sony really want to hit that goal. Johnny G22, let me check my mic looking good still. Johnny G22, what's up, Benji? It's funny to look at IGN on Starfield reviews. US only one to be so low, whereas Brazil, France, and Japan were so high. I did see that. That's a little interesting. Now, that means, all of these different IGNs are going to have someone different reviewing it, depending on which part it is. But it is interesting that the US one is so much lower than the others. I saw that, like, several of them gave 10s, I think. I think IGN Japan was a 10, I think. And I think maybe even 1 or 2 more of those IGNs were a 10. But the US, which is seen as like the main IGN, yeah, they were much lower. Like I said, that 7 did surprise me. Whenever I say the high 80s meta didn't surprise me, the 7 from IGN was a surprise. That was the one where I was like, oh, I didn't see that one coming. I thought IGN would be higher than that. That was the one that really caught me off guard. I expected PC Gamer to be low, if I'm being honest. I'm not trying to throw no shade, but PC Gamer's coverage of Starfield has been largely negative for a long time. So, I'm not claiming bias or anything. Maybe that person at PC Gamer that reviewed it is super, super nice, great, completely fair reviewer. I don't know who reviewed it at PC Gamer. I'm just saying, given the tone of how they've been talking about Starfield, that one did not surprise me. I was expecting them to come in pretty low, which did happen. Marco Meyerliz here. Hey, Benji, no question. Just wanted to let you know how many people appreciate you, me included. Holy cow, dude. Wow, that's nice. I look forward to your perspective on topics, and I'm not alone. You are a shining star in this industry. Holy cow, Marco, that is like incredibly kind of you, dude. incredibly kind. I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am in, to have an audience, and I very much appreciate that. I try and remind people a lot, and I don't do this to be like some feel bad for me thing. I do it to like make sure people understand, because I have all the time people think that I'm like some big paid journalist in the industry, and I try and remind people all the time, I'm like, I am literally just a retail worker that, like, if you walk into a big box retailer, I won't say the name, and you just see some dude like stocking shelves and ringing people out, that's me. Like, so I'm incredibly grateful to have an audience, because I am not some big journalist. I'm not some guy that's getting sent tons of free stuff and like has all of the hookups. I'm literally just a dude. I'm as random average of a guy as you can ever find. So I am incredibly grateful to have the audience I have. So thank you so much, Marco. I really appreciate that. Logan Hardy, hey Benji, Starfield reviews are absolutely great, but the expectations were game of the generation, most ambitious game ever. Do you think Xbox is cursed and can't land a serious game of the year? Yeah, I get what you're saying, because the reviews, again, are great. Like, overall, an 87 meta is a very great score. 90% of games would kill for an 87 Metacritic. But you are right in that there was a lot of people hyping this game. And I'm not necessarily saying Bethesda did that, because Bethesda themselves never said, like, we're making the greatest game of the generation. Like, they love their game. They've been like, dude, we can't wait. We're so excited. But it wasn't really them saying it. It was getting put on this game by a lot of people. So that's going to make people have crazy expectations. Do I think Xbox can't land a serious game of the year? No, I think they can, but it's not going to be this year. That's just the truth. Starfield's not winning this year. It's going to be Zelda or Baldur's Gate, unless something else comes out and just shocks us with its reviews. It's going to be Baldur's Gate 3 or Zelda. Those are just the two front runners by miles. So, can they ever get a serious Game of the Year contender? Sure. I'm never going to say no one can get a Game of the Year contender, but I think there was a lot of hope that Starfield could be that one for Xbox, and it's not going to be. That's just the truth. Now, it doesn't mean there's not going to be some publications, by the way, like individual ones that do give it Game of the Year. We are seeing, again, people are going to focus on that 87 meta, but we are seeing tons of perfect scores. There's a lot of 10 out of 10s. There's a lot of 5 out of 5s. So there's probably going to be some publications that actually do give Starfield their personal Game of the Year. But we're talking like the Game Awards, right? It will not be Starfield. It will be Zelda or Baldur's Gate unless something else shocks us. Michael Yu, hey Benji, now that we have a good idea where Metacritic is for Starfield, does that change or doesn't change where you think CCU will land during early access and for launch? I'm talking strictly Steam here. Well, let's see, guys. Let's look at your poll results. I asked you, how high does Starfield's peak on CCUs on Steam hit? And wow, the leading vote is 1 million. Guys, that will be very exciting. I'll tell you that right now. If I see that million number pop up on Steam, you're going to see me tweeting like a madman tonight or tomorrow or next week. Whenever it hits that peak, you're going to be seeing me tweeting like an absolute fiend, because this would be only the second single player only game to go over 1 million. It would just be this and Cyberpunk. So if that happens, we're looking at either the first or second biggest launch in the history of Steam for a single player only game. So right now that's the lead. That would be cool. That would be hype. The second closest vote is just below that, the 800,000 to 999,000, right at 27%. Right below that, 23% is 600,000 to 799,000. And then with 14%, it's 599,000 or less. I'll tell you, I'm going to fall personally in that 800 to 999 range. I think that these reviews are still strong enough that it's not really going to hurt the game at all. Maybe you're going to get the occasional person that sees like an IGN or GameSpot 7 and be like, oh, I'm going to hold off now. But it's still enough positive momentum. I think most people that were interested in buying Starfield are still going to buy Starfield. So I don't think that the reviews like really hurt it that much. Obviously 90 plus would be even better. But right now I'll play it a little safe. I don't actually know if this is, I'll say safe. We're still talking an absolutely massive number. But I'm going to go with that 800 to 999 range. A million plus will be incredibly hype. I'd love to see it happen. But I'm going to pull back a bit. I'm going to go with that 800 to 999. I still think it'll be absolutely massive. But we do have to keep in mind there's Game Pass. There's going to be people playing this on Game Pass. So we'll go right in there. But I hope that the 36% of you that are voting a million plus, I hope you guys are right. Because that would be extremely hype-inducing. I think we had a super chat drop. How long have I been streaming? Oh, we're good, dude. We're good, man. We still got time in the bank, baby. Thanks for an amazing turnout in chat, by the way. We've been well over 100 basically the whole stream. Which for my channel is great. Really, really great. Highlander coming in with a 5 super chat. What's up, Highlander? Good to see you, buddy. I think Sony raising the price of their services is not sign or look for Sony. I think you mean not a good sign or look for Sony, especially without adding anything of value. Does this hurt Sony? I do think they were way too aggressive on that price raise. You know, earlier we were talking about, you know, like people pivoting now to like, now that they're not really growing massively, right? Maybe Game Pass is still gaining some subs. You know, maybe PlayStation Plus, we know that stagnated, but, you know, maybe they can still in the future gain some subs, but they're now going to have to shift to increasing revenue since they're not explosively growing with subscribers. So I get raising prices, but this to me was way too aggressive at once. I mean, it's a big jump. We're talking like, I think it was over 30% for the tiers in the US. Over 30% at once? That is pretty aggressive, especially because this is not a cheap subscription service compared to like certain other subs. And I know video games and movies and stuff are different things, but like PlayStation Plus was already not a cheap subscription. And now it jumps by like, you know, 30% plus in the United States at once. It is aggressive. That is an aggressive. I'll tell you right now, I'm on PS Plus Extra. And there's a real chance that I'm dropping down to just whatever it's called, basic or the, you know, essentials, whatever it's called. There's a real chance I'm going to drop my sub. I'm still obviously going to have to keep some sort of subscription because I do play online on PlayStation. But, I mean, it's really freaking expensive. And I don't have tons of money. So I haven't absolutely said I'm going to, like, for sure drop it, but I'm debating it. I really might drop it. My subscription, I think, goes all the way till December, so I don't even have to think about it right now. But in December, I'll tell you, whenever my time for renewal comes up, I'm going to be looking real side-eyed at that extra that I'm on right now and being like, do I really need to pay for this? I mean, I play a few games on extra, but I'll be honest, I'm not one of these people that's constantly playing the extra games. I'm playing so many new releases that I just buy that it's like the game here or there. So I don't know. I do think I Highlander, it was a big jump at once. Usually with these sub increases across the board, not always, but usually you try to incrementally raise that price. Like we've seen Netflix at times raise it by like $1, you know, per month. Like not huge jumps at once necessarily. Sony was pretty aggressive on this one. Pretty aggressive. All right. Back to the free questions. SD, Benji, you think Starfield being 87 is good, but you think that shows Nintendo and PlayStation is in another league. Their biggest games used to be 94, etc. People think that's easy to achieve, but Xbox's biggest game is 87. What do you think PS and Nintendo have that Xbox doesn't? Again, you got to be careful with saying that like PlayStation's just a lock for 90 plus, because again, I just listed some of the biggest games they've ever released that have not hit 90 plus. Neither Spider-Man game did it. Neither Horizon game did it. Ghost of Tsushima did not do it. But again, they do have ones that do. You know what I mean? Whereas Xbox doesn't really. Outside of like Forza Horizon, we're not really seeing much 90s out of Xbox. So I agree that the highest tier of PlayStation and Nintendo can review better than the highest tier of Xbox as of now from what we're seeing. I do think people kind of overpaint that because it is still, again, even for PlayStation, the exception. They do get games like God of War Ragnarok and The Last of Us that hit 90 plus, but again, it's not all PlayStation games. In fact, it's not close to all of the PlayStation first-party games. So you got to be careful about overpainting that scenario. And I'm not saying you are SD, but it's not like a case like every PlayStation game's 90 plus and Xbox can't hit it. There are key exceptions where PlayStation can get there. what is Xbox missing to get there? That is an interesting question. It's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to say. Getting 90 plus is so hard that they just have to have that magic game. And what that's going to be, I don't know. I don't know if we see a 90 plus outside of Forza. Because Forza, we can't ignore. Forza does do it, especially the Horizon games. But I think you mean like, a story-based sort of game. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. I can see Xbox getting one sometime this generation. They have so many studios, so many teams. What that game's going to be, that magic one that gets them that 90 plus, because even Hi-Fi Rush, it was close, but it did miss it. I'm not sure. I am not sure, SD. I suspect one of their teams this gen does finally get over that hump that they've been in for a long time outside of Forza Horizon to get that rare 90 plus, but I don't know. I don't know what it'll be. Osmosis. Metacritic is a pretty decent indicator of things, though. However, I think the obsession with 90 plus games is a little far-fetched. I agree with that. There are so many games you could cross out that if it is the standard, Spider-Man, all the Dark Souls, Final Fantasy VII Remake, etc., all scored around 87, 88. Exactly. That's literally what I've been saying. So I've been saying in the stream, the obsession with 90 plus, to me, it's more of like a celebratory thing when it happens because it isn't the norm. I know it kind of seems like it this year, but this year is an oddity. The fact that we got like a Baldur's Gate 3 that reviewed as high as it did, the fact that we got an Zelda that reviewed that high like in the same year, plus Street Fighter, which I believe is over 90, plus I know there was a few others that were over 90. I know this year it kind of seems like, wow, the 90s are here, but this is an oddity year. Like, you don't see usually most years where you're getting all these big games hitting 90 plus. So, yeah, to me, the obsession with 90 plus is overdone. It's awesome when it happens. When it does, it's like a big celebratory, holy cow, look at what this game was able to achieve sort of thing. But the obsession with it that's a hardcore thing. I can tell you that if I go to my work where I'm a retail worker and I go up to even gamers that I work with and go, did you know that Starfield got an 87 Metacritic instead of 90? They would look at me and be like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not kidding. All of us that are in this online space where we're like so hardcore and lasered in, I try to remind people of this. We are not the normal gamer. That doesn't mean the normal gamer doesn't go online and read an IGN review or something like that, but the people that are sitting around talking about the difference between an 87 Metacritic and a 90 Metacritic are like, if this is the center of the average gamer, like they're here, they're like all the way over here. Like your average gamer will be like, I heard it got good reviews. I heard a game got bad reviews. They don't say, oh my God, it got an 87 Metacritic and not a 91. That's a very small part of the actual gaming community. But I mean, I'm in it too, so I'm not saying like I'm like bad gamers being obsessed with Metacritic. I mean, I'm talking about it too, but I'm saying I am one of these people that's way further deep down into gaming than your average gamer. They just want to know if a game's good or not if it's 95 Metacritic. Blazing Flame, do you think Embracer is in trouble / danger? Yes. Which interesting we finally got here. Do you think they could go bankrupt or end up selling their assets and prices? Or do you think they are safe and some studios / games will get shut down? Okay. So the first part of your question, do I think Embracer's in trouble? Yes. I think that we are seeing the negative impact of expanding way too fast. I said in my Discord, I was like, this giant expansion race that Embracer did was going to go either like ultra amazing or like really bad. There was like, to me, almost no in between because they were so aggressive about it. It was like either like some of these studios, like these tons and tons of studios they bought, were just going to start dropping hits and it was going to be like, wow, Embracer was genius buying all these studios at once because they just had all these hits. Or it was going to go like real bad. And we're kind of seeing the real bad end of that spectrum. Volition being closed is really sad. I feel really, really bad for them. Do I think that their other studios are safe? Not at all. Not at all. I think there's a real chance Embracer could be closing more studios. Now, I'm not saying that that's absolutely happening. I'm not saying it's the most likely. I will not be shocked at all if over the next year we see Embracer announce even more studio closings. They bought so many at once and aren't getting back the sort of money I think that they were expecting. So do I think they go all the way down the end of the thing here where you're saying bankrupt or selling their assets to pieces? I think that's a little too aggressive. I don't see them going bankrupt. I don't necessarily see them selling off parts, but maybe. I would say maybe the selling off parts, the bankrupt I don't see. But I do think they're in trouble, yeah. Yeah, they need some games to hit and to hit big and to hit quick. Because this is a bit of a known thing. You also saw like that huge fallout that happened whenever their deal with like the Saudis fell apart. So they're under a lot of pressure. So they're not in a good spot now. Casual Gamer, hi, do you think in the next year or two, PlayStation will start announcing and releasing games more frequently? Don't you think by then most of their first-party studios will be ready to show/release? Hopefully. Hopefully. I do think PlayStation needs a little bit higher output. Now, last year was actually a good year for output. You know, last year was actually really strong, right? Last year was Horizon, God of War, The Last of Us, and Gran Turismo, right? Didn't they have all of those last year? That's 4 big releases. That's a great year. So, like, last year was super good. 2023 has been not as good. Spider-Man's going to be awesome, but not as good in terms of consistent amount of releases, in my opinion, as 2022 was. 2024 is looking a little questionable, if we're being honest right now, just because Sony doesn't have much announced. So I would hope so. To me, I said this, I think, on the last chat. One area where I think Phil Spencer has a very great goal is that big game per quarter. I think if you're a platform holder and you can have a big game per quarter, so essentially 4 big releases a year, I think you're in a great place. Whether you're Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, like I think that's a great goal to have. It's not going to be easily achievable. It's going to be tough. But if you can get a big game per quarter, and when I say a big game, not every one of those needs to be Spider-Man 2 in size, just like what we saw last year, where it was Horizon, God of War, Gran Turismo, The Last of Us Part 1 Remake. You know, that Part 1 Remake obviously isn't going to be on the same tier as like God of War and, Horizon, but it's still a big release. So they don't all need to be like the S tier biggest releases. But if you can get 4 big, quote, quote, first party games per year, I think that's a great place to be in. So hopefully, but I'll tell you what, 2024 casual gamers looking a little from first party. From third party, they got some awesome stuff, right? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I'm sure, is going to be amazing. We know that they've got like Silent Hill 2 Remake that they're partnered with. Like they have some big key third party exclusives, but we're talking strictly first party. 2024 is looking a little questionable, but that could change if they announce some big stuff soon. I think we had a super chat. Let me hit that super chat. We do from Benji. Benji dropping a 5. Great to see you, Benji. Hi, Benji. I think Xbox fans' frustration is related to the fact their mid-high 80s Metacritic games aren't considered for Game of the Year when Sony's titles are. Here's the thing. I think that in most years, Starfield would be in the Game of the Year contender, like as a lock. Like most years. It's really 2023 where it's like, this is a tough one. Here's the thing, Benji, like Starfield really still might. I don't consider Starfield a lock anymore to get nominated at the Game Awards. Here's the thing. Starfield's probably a lock to get a nomination if we don't see Spider-Man and Alan Wake go crazy on the reviews. Like if they are not hitting like crazy scores. Because again, there are a lot of places that voted or that reviewed this game very, very highly. So Starfield still might get a nomination. It's definitely in play. It's all about what happens in October to me. And even if those games go crazy on reviews, Starfield could still sneak in. It's just not a lock anymore. Most years, I think it would be a lock. But when you're looking at a year where we have the Zelda at over 90, we got the Baldur's Gate at over 90, we got Final Fantasy, isn't Final Fantasy 16 real high too, just like Starfield? I haven't checked its meta in a while, but isn't it like 89? I think it's pretty high, man. I think it's pretty high. But maybe it dipped. I know at one point it was 89. Okay, it dipped. It's 87. So again, it's right on that line. Final Fantasy is right on that line, just like Starfield is. So again, that means that they're competing for spots because they're so close in terms of reviews. And the reason reviews in this case are kind of important is it's that these media sites are the ones who vote for the nominations. Like, that's how the Game Awards work. Jeff takes all of these, different publication outlets, and they vote on what their favorite games for the year are, and those become the nominations. So that's why Metacritic and reviews start to be a little useful in figuring out who's going to get those noms, because these are the people that are going to vote for the nominees. So again, you got Starfield and Final Fantasy. Those are both, to me, right on that line. One of them could get nominated. Both of them could get nominated. But those are right on that line. You got Street Fighter, which is over 90. Who knows how Spider-Man and Alan Wake 2 might review. They're both looking great. So it might happen, man. Starfield still might get a GOTY nom. But it's not a lock anymore. It's more of like it's in play. We need to see how a few things shake out for it. So one thing I talk about a lot, not a lot, but one thing I have talked about, I do think that Xbox in some areas, in terms of media coverage, is at a little bit of a disadvantage compared to PlayStation and Nintendo. And whenever I say this, I want to be very clear about something. That's not me saying media are biased against Xbox, because you do see that all the time. Here's where I think that, it's always asked, like, how come PlayStation and Nintendo can get such big headlines, so much coverage, so much positive momentum, and all this sort of thing. The reality is all you have to do is look at install base. How many PlayStation gamers are out there? How many Nintendo gamers are out there? Compare that to how many Xbox gamers there are out there. They have bigger install bases, which means that they're probably, not for sure, they'll probably be overrepresented in media as well compared to Xbox. Again, this isn't like an inherent bias I'm saying. I'm saying in sheer number. If the number of PlayStation and Nintendo gamers are already much higher than Xbox, and the people that you hire to work at these publications are gamers, right? Now, I mean, they're journalists, but they wouldn't be covering games if they're not interested in them. Just statistically speaking, you're probably going to get more PlayStation and Nintendo fans than Xbox fans working at these publications. That's just how it works in terms of statistics and number of players. So I do say sometimes I think there might be a chance that Xbox, in terms of just raw organic coverage, may be a bit disadvantaged compared to PlayStation and Nintendo, but I don't think any of that sort of thing. I know Xbox gamers want to say it's an inherent bias, where it's they're choosing that sort of thing. I think it could just be that the reality is there might just be more PlayStation and Nintendo quote fans, not fanboys, people that are fans of these brands growing up that might work at these publications more than Xbox. There's going to be some Xbox ones, but in raw numbers, it might be more PlayStation and Nintendo ones. So it's one thing to keep in mind. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. I found it funny, and Xbox fans shouldn't be overly defensive here over these scores, because it's overall still a great reviewed game. I want to keep repeating that, and 87 is a great score. It's a great score. Highlander001. I found it funny that there was an article about someone on Twitter saying, why can't we walk on Jupiter or other large planets? I found it funny. Yeah, I saw that dude getting absolutely roasted. He should have been roasted for that one. That was quite the take. So this isn't me just saying Xbox fans maybe were a little too aggressive on declaring 90+. We've also seen the exact flip side of some hardcore PlayStation fanboys being absolutely ridiculous about Starfield. We've seen a lot of it. And yeah, that was one where I saw that dude get absolutely roasted. I saw he got roasted so bad on Twitter, they actually put a community notes thing on his tweet. That's how bad. It's you do know how a gas giant works, right? There's nothing to land on. You can't land on a gas giant because there's nothing there to land on. You'll just go through it and get crushed by the pressure, and that's all that'll happen. No, maybe you could make the argument of maybe in the atmosphere they could build some sort of like little thing floating in the atmosphere. Sure, you could do something like that. But the idea you could just fly to a gas giant, land on it, and explore, it's like, my guy, I don't know if you're going to pass the science class. That was funny. All right. I don't think Benji has gotten a channel member question answered, but I'm not saying a channel member one, just the super chats. All right, we're going to go for 15 more minutes. So I'm going to fly through, hit a few more stuff. We got 15 minutes, and I got to bounce. I got to go to work today. Thanks for an amazing turnout. We've been over 100 like the entire stream, which for me, again, that's like the bar of when a stream does very well for me. If we do over 100 for most of the stream, that's great. Xavier Ariel, I've been looking at what the reviews say rather than what the score is, and most complaints are it's slow, it's too large, there's too much to do. I wouldn't say most, because again, actually most scores are very high. This always happens, by the way, with every game. Every single game. And Xavier, I'm not saying you're like doing anything bad here. I'm just saying like every game people hyper focus on the bad reviews. The reality is, and this is literally fact, Starfield has way more glowing reviews than it has negative ones. How do we know that? It's at 87 Metacritic. That's just how the statistical math works. You can't be that high if most of your reviews are not glowing. So I would say that, are there some people complaining about that? For sure. I would say those are the most, maybe that's how you mean it. It's the fact that you say, okay, maybe you just mean most of the ones that are complaining. You don't mean most complaints across all reviews, because this isn't true of all reviews. If you mean the most common complaints from the people that are complaining are that, yeah, I would agree with that. Especially too slow early on. That's what I've heard from many people. Is that this, what I hear from a lot of people, even I cannot say much. Gotta be careful what I say. What I've consistently heard, and now that you're seeing, now that reviews are out, from what everyone's hearing, right? This is all public information, is that the beginning of the game is slow. That seems to be a universal, even among the positive ones, a universal feeling is that the beginning of the game is too slow. All right, we did talk about PS Plus subs. We're getting a bunch of people asking about that, but we already talked about it. What up, Pat? Pat Fury saying, what up, Benji? What up, Pat? Sounds PP7. Benji, how did you feel about the most recent Stalker 2 trailer, and do you think the delay will help a ton in terms of sales? And any idea how big its sales could be in 2024? I actually didn't watch it. I did not see the most recent Stalker 2 trailer. I'll be honest, it's a game I'm not personally that interested in. I will probably play it because it's on Game Pass, but it's not a game I probably would have went out of my way to play. I've never played the original Stalker, for example. I have heard that it looked like the game got a downgrade. But keep in mind what that dev team's going through. I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, that game was being developed in Ukraine, and then, you know, a freaking war happened. So, you know, I want to be very, you know, respectful of the team, and who knows, that final version may, you know, get back to the quality level that it looked like the early showings were. I heard, this isn't me saying I saw, I just heard people saying it looked like it was downgraded from earlier showings. But that dev team's going through a lot, so I'm going to be careful on saying it's definitely going to be downgraded. How big is its sales potential? From what I understand, Stalker is actually pretty big in Europe. So it could do well in Europe. I'm not expecting a ton out of the North America, for example. Probably pretty good engagement on Game Pass. The area this will sell the best will be Europe. So, could do well. What up, Guillermo? Guillermo Lima. Hey, Benji, no question for now. How are you doing today? I haven't been able to participate on the last stream, so great to see you all again. Great to see you, Guillermo. I'm doing okay. Doing okay. Not at my worst, not at my best. Just making it through day by day, you know. Abdi J. Starfield seems to be a game that gets better over time. I can see it being critically beloved in like a couple months' time. Yes, it seems to be a game that the more you play it, the better it is. That absolutely seems to be a very common feeling among people. Again, this is in the reviews. It does appear that early on, the game is a bit of a slow burn, let's say, right? There's more mean ways you could say that, but we'll just say a slow burn. I think a lot of people that jump in, just going based off reviews, you might see like the first impressions coming out from people when they start today being like, oh man, this is okay. I was hoping it'd be better. But from what everyone says, the more you play it, the better it is. So it's probably going to be one of those sorts of things. What up, Sam Weimer? Jose, we talked about this. Is Sony not reporting PSN memberships a sign of being stagnant the way Xbox stopped reporting? Yes. Yes, PS Plus memberships are stagnating massively. They've been stagnated for quite some time, to be honest. Ruthwick, Benji with the wand crystal ball. Well, you know, here's the thing. I get people sometimes that will tell me, like, they'll try and gas me up, and they'll be like, you know, of course I get stuff wrong sometimes too. But I'll get people that'll try to gas me up sometimes, and they'll be like, you know, Benji nailed it again, or Benji, you know, you're good at predicting certain things. Here's the thing. It only really looks that way because I'm really careful what I like talk about. Generally, if I'm giving my like impression on something like publicly, it's something I've actually taken the time to think about or research. Like you see some people on Twitter, which this is okay. Everyone can, you know, handle their social media accounts different ways. But you see some people that just machine gun every thought they have onto their feed. You know, you see a lot of people like that. They're just constantly tweeting every single thought that enters their head. That thing gets written down and gets sent. I am much more careful with what I say publicly. So believe me when I say that internally in my own thoughts, I'll think something and get it wrong a lot, right? But if I'm going to actually take the time to come out and publicly tweet something, which I'm instantly audited on, right? Every single thing that I post is audited. There are people that hate me, not many. Most people actually do like me. But there are, I won't go that far. I'll say whatever, however you want to look at it. There are people that truly hate me for whatever reason. And they will go through every single thing I post, and they want to screenshot it, and they want to say how I'm a PlayStation fanboy or I'm an Xbox fanboy. It's hilarious how often I get that one way or the other, which to me shows a sign that I'm doing a good job because I'm angering both sides of the hardcore fanboy space. But if I'm going to go out there and I'm going to publicly say something, I'm going to publicly tweet it out, it's because I put the thought into it. And again, it still might be wrong, but your percentage is already going to go higher if you've made sure you thought this through before you post it than just being like, thought enters my head, send tweet. Thought enters my head, send tweet. Thought enters my head, send tweet. Then your percentages are going to go a lot worse. So that's part of why I have a decent consistency. It's because I'm pretty careful about what I discuss. I try to only talk about things that I feel like I've done the research or have a decent take on. Ghost Tunnels, I'm curious, do you think WB Games will change their strategy and stop chasing live services? I think we talked about this in the last stream, so I'm not going to say much Ghost Tunnels other than they should stop chasing live service, yes. An occasional live service attempt, sure. You guys have heard me say it on the stream millions of times. By now, I know publishers have heard what I've had to say about it. And that doesn't mean that they agree with me, but you guys got to be careful. My message to every publisher, be careful on chasing live service. So my answer will always be the same. Every time someone asks me that question, should WB be pursuing 20 live service games? Should Ubisoft? Should PlayStation? Should Xbox? My answer will always be no. A few, yes. You should be trying to get some sort of live service. You got to be careful, man. That market is so competitive that breaking out is very difficult. JCat, LOL, I love how Benji has his game collection angled towards the camera. I got some. I got a bunch of PS5 games here. I got a bunch of Switch games here. My setup is real bad. It's been real bad for a long time. There's a giant freaking TV sitting over there. This is like just a spare room. I need to clean it up, make it look nice, make the whole stream look better. I should put more effort in. But it's funny. Those aren't actually even there to show off. They're there because where they were sitting, which is like a big shelf, is a hot freaking mess. And I had to move them over here because I was like trying to find games, and then they just stayed there and they haven't left. So Xbox, I'm fully digital. Well, mostly. Actually, that's not true. I have a stack of Xbox games over there, but I haven't bought a single Xbox first-party game since Game Pass came out, and I'm buying most of my third-party games this gen on PS5 because a lot of third-party games come to Game Pass later, so I just buy the PS5 version and then play the Xbox version on Game Pass or whatever. But yeah, this is not like... I should make it look better. Razer Z32, hello. I felt this would be an 87 rating game. How do you feel about Baldur's Gate 3's future, and would you consider Baldur's Gate 3 Game of the Year contender? Yes, it will be. It will be that or Zelda. Either Baldur's Gate 3 or Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is getting Game of the Year at the Game Awards. It's going to be one of those two games. Unless, again, in October, something shocks us, like Spider-Man 2 gets a 95 Metacritic, or Alan Wake 2 gets a 95 Metacritic. Like, unless something completely surprising happens, it's going to be Baldur's Gate 3 or Zelda. Those are the front runners for Game of the Year. It will be one of those two games. For sure. Ryan Frostman, no Xbox games in the background. Benji is a Sony shill confirmed with a winky face. All right, here, let me grab a stack. Let me grab a stack. You know. Give me a minute. All right, here's a bunch. Let's grab more. Here's more. Let's grab more. All right, you guys get the gist. All right, I could grab more. You get the gist. Here, let's set these. All right, there we go. It's so funny how people always want to say I'm one or the other. It cracks me up. I do not care about console wars, guys. At some point, you'll learn this. I care how things are selling because I find it fascinating. I do not care about console wars. All right, we're wrapping this up. Just a few more. A few more. A few more. Jake got little Benji flexing. I like video games. What can I say? I've got stacks and stacks of these things everywhere for all the systems. Osmosis, the stack isn't the same. Oh no. Yeah, it's not. Like I said, I don't buy first-party Xbox games. I have no reason to, since I'm subbed to Game Pass. So that alone is going to make a definite difference between PlayStation and Xbox in terms of number of games I buy. Because I literally haven't bought a single first-party Xbox game since Game Pass came out. So that would be why. Right? I don't think I have a single first-party game. No, it's all third-party. I just don't buy them. You know, I have Game Pass, so I don't really need to buy Xbox games, like first-party games. I'll buy third-party games on there, especially if I find like a better deal than on the PlayStation version, because I don't really care. But I would say I'm tending this gen. Last gen, I was all in on my third-party games were all on Xbox, and I really only played first-party games on PlayStation. This gen, I'm a little more flipped to getting most of my third parties on PlayStation. Except for, like I said, if I can find a better deal on the Xbox One, I'll buy that. But yeah, whatever. It's all the same, man. All right, we're just going to hit a few more. Oh, and this just caught my eye. A nice comment here from Halil. Hey, man. You are the most peaceful and humble guy I've ever seen, Benji. Never change, brother. Well, here's the thing. The humble part got beaten into me. You know, if you would have known me, like, here's the thing. If you knew me in like my early 20s, right? I think you would not have been able to describe me at the time as humble, and I don't know if you could use that word now, but if you knew me in my early 20s, I was a bit of a madman. And at that point in time, that word probably didn't work for me. But life in the last, 6 or 7 years, it's absolutely beating it out of me, man. It's hard for me to be cocky about anything. You know what I mean? Life sometimes just beats you down. And now it's just like, I'm just a guy, man. I'm just a dude. Sometimes people let the following thing get to their head. Nowadays, to me, man, we're just a community, man. I'm just a dude. And you say never change, brother? I won't. Trust me, I won't change. I mean, here's the thing. Hopefully my only changes are for the better in terms of being, like, less effing depressed and anxious. But me all of a sudden becoming this dude who thinks I'm the man and better than everyone, trust me, man. That'll never happen. Cosimo, your streams keep getting better and better each week. Keep up the good work. You rock, Cosimo, and thanks for being a channel member. You rock. Oh, Highlander, I missed a super chat. Let me get it. Let me get it, dude. I did. You're right, man. Highlander with a 2 super chat. Thanks for the idea. I will build Bespin. Oh, yeah. I wonder if you can do that. Bespin from, like, Star Wars, which is up in the clouds, man. Maybe. I don't know if you can build one of those like that. I know you can build bases. I don't know if you can build a base on a gas giant, but that would be hype. Yo, if you could do that, that would be sick, man. That I haven't seen. I haven't seen if you can do that, but if so, it'll be sick. Don't worry, I'm going to still rapid fire a few more. I love these streams. They're fun, and I always push it to the limit. So, in terms of time. So, let's rapid fire a few more, man. Let's rapid fire a few more. Danger Man 1337. The Starfield score matches a lot of Sony's output as well. Horizon and Spider-Man have received the same levels of scores. I think exactly. We've talked about this. Danger Man, you probably came on the stream late. Yeah, we talked about this a lot. An 87 meta only looks like a bad score if your expectations were like crazy high, because this is still a very highly reviewed game. Now, I'm not going to go out of my way and say this is like a mind-blowing score, right? I'm not saying 87 Metacritic means like, we're popping champagne bottles and we're like, just ruling the earth. It's not one of those sort of scenarios, but a very well-reviewed game. Yes, it is a very well-reviewed game. Slide of Mind, just saw the news of Volition. Yikes. Crazy to see what happened, but they did it to themselves. It's not even shocking. I didn't play the Saints Row reboot. I know that the consensus was it was not a very good game. Like, what is its Metacritic at? We're talking metas. I think this is unfortunately real low. Yeah, 61. 61 on is the reboot. That is a bad score, man. That's bad. I feel really bad for the devs. I hope they all find work quickly. Just because your game comes out with a 61 meta doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lack of talent. There's all sorts of stuff that goes into building these games. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Didn't work out this time, and I do feel bad for everyone at Volition. You never want to lose a job. One of the most devastating moments of my life was whenever I lost a job one time. I lost a job, and then since I lost that job, I lost a house, and then since I lost that house and that job, I really spiraled into depression bad. You think I'm struggling now? That was the worst time of my life. So I know how devastating losing a job can be. So hope everyone lands on their feet quick. I think we have a super chat coming in at the end. J2 Blue in the Sky with a 5. My predictions for all the big October games. All right, this is fun. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, 86. Sonic Superstars, 85. Alan Wake 2, 88. Spider-Man 2, 89. Assassin's Creed Mirage, 79. Nice predictions. Those are fun. Super Mario Bros. Wonder sounds about right for what I'm thinking too. And again, none of us are Nostradamus here, but that sounds about right. Mid-80s. That seems like a mid-80s game. Right in that range-ish. And you never know until you play it, but, that range. Sonic Superstars, again, yeah, mid-80s. Sounds about right. Alan Wake 2, yeah, I'm never going to declare a game 90+, but, like, I do think we see high 80s probably out of this. because the main reason I say that, obviously I'm going to be biased because I'm an Alan Wake like super fan. But on top of that, literally every single time this game gets demoed, the press just rave about it. It's not even like a one-off. It's repeatedly. Once you have like that happening over and over and over again, it's usually a sign the game's probably pretty good. I mean, I literally just saw an article yesterday where someone, I think it was Games Radar Plus, one of the sites, was talking about how they saw 40 minutes of the game at Gamescom, and that literally the headline was one of the best demos I've seen for a game in years. Like, once you keep having this, like, not as a one-off, but consistently be the tone, keep in mind, Alan Wake also won Game of the Show at Summer Game Fest. It's probably going to review high. You don't want to assume 90 plus, but yeah, that high 80s does seem like very much in play for Alan Wake. Probably the same for Spider-Man. Yeah, I think these are all right. The only one I think, J2 Blue in the Sky, you maybe are a little off is Assassin's Creed Mirage, but it's hard to say. Assassin's Creed, that looks a little low for Mirage to me, but you never know, man. None of us know until we play. Krubrin, are you playing Sea of Stars? Not yet. At some point I'm going to get to Sea of Stars, but I just finished my Alan Wake replay. I'm finally getting caught up on anime, guys. I've been out of the anime loop the last few years. I like dove in hard. I'm watching Jujutsu Kaisen right now, and I love it. You know, I don't know if that's a hot take. I'm not sure how popular it is or not, but I'm watching the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen right now, and it is sick. I love it. It's so good. So I'm trying to like get caught up on all the anime I've missed over the last like 3 or 4 years, because I like haven't watched any besides Attack on Titan. I watched Attack on Titan, but out of that, I haven't watched anything the last 3 or 4 years. So Jujutsu Kaisen I'm watching, just finished Alan Wake. I'm about to dive into Starfield. There's only so much time. Sea of Stars will be played though, yes, at some point. All right, last one or two. Last one or two. Last one or two. TBB, do you think the Metascore will change when more reviews get published over the coming weeks? Sure. It could absolutely shift by a point or two. Now, how many reviews are in right now? I think it's a decent number. Right now it's at an 87 with 51 reviews. I mean, it's a decent number. Like 51 is not a small number of reviews. Once you start getting into that range, you're kind of in the territory it's going to settle at. So TBB, could that move by a point or two? Could it drop to 86? Could it rise to 88 or 89 even? You know, it's the potential is there, but like enough reviews are in it, especially from big outlets, right? We have the GameSpots, we have the IGNs, we have the Game Informers, we have the PC Gamers. Like, it ain't going to shift by much. Like, it can't probably hit 90 at this point. And it's also not going to drop down to like 82. It's in the range. It's going to at most shift by a point or two either direction, but it's right about where it's going to land. It's not going to move by much. But it could move a little bit. Renell, will Stalker 2 get 94? I'll never predict the game gets 94. We just got to see, man. I'm never going to predict 90s for a game. I'll say when I think it's in play, like whenever I'm like, the game, like I think Alan Wake 2. I think 90s is in play just based off of what, you know, the gushing previews. But I ain't ever going to actually like flat out say, oh, it's a lock. This game's going to get 90, because that's hard to say, man. Justin Smith, no way Starfield doesn't get Game of the Year nominee by sheer popularity. Well, Justin, the problem is that it is media members that are voting for this. It's not a popularity poll. You know, it's strictly what are the 6 games that each one of these publications presents to Keighley. So, again, I would say that Starfield definitely has a chance. Definitely has a chance. I just don't think it's a lock. And again, it's just all about what these publications give to Jeff. But it absolutely could. Absolutely could. All right. Are we going to call it there? I really need to. I really need to. Yeah, I'm not crazy. Kazimo, Jujutsu is amazing. Marco, Jujutsu Kaisen is so good. JCat wasn't feeling Jujutsu Kaisen. But a lot of people do seem to like it. Dude, it's so dope. I'm really enjoying it. Very violent, I'll warn you. You got to be okay with a very violent anime. Jujutsu Kaisen does not hold back in that regard. But really enjoying it. Really enjoying it. I think after this I'm going to go to Chainsaw Man once I get caught up on Jujutsu Kaisen. That's probably what I'm going to do next. But I'm enjoying it a lot. All right, guys, I got to bounce. Riemann from Kurdistan with a heart. Heart to you, Riemann. I love seeing people from all over the world in chat. It's literally my favorite thing about this chat is that we can all connect from all over the freaking world. How cool is that? All right, guys, I got to bounce. I got to go to work. As always, you guys are amazing. Mrinal saying, Benji-Sales, thank you. No, thank you, Mrinal. I think, again, I don't think I missed any channel members getting at least one. I always guarantee you guys at least one. I don't think I missed any. I didn't miss any super chats. I got to some free questions. Overall, I'm going to call this stream a success, boys and girls. Let's bounce. All right. Thank you so much, guys. You are all the best. Love you. As always, stay safe. Play some games. Like the video if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Follow me on Twitter/X if you haven't. And let's have a good one, guys. For everyone diving into Starfield tonight, like I will be, I hope you have a blast. I hope you absolutely enjoy it. And we're going to go, guys. Thanks. You guys are the best. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.